Well, it is absolutely wonderful to have you here. It's a dream of my life, I must say. And I suppose that everybody here knows that His Holiness is our patron, but you probably don't know that he was also our first member. Because you'll remember in Zurich, this is 5 years ago, I was on the platform together, and I was outlining our plans, and I was getting round to saying we were going to need to recruit some members, and up went your hand. And we have it on camera. So you were our first member. The next thing we had to do, of course, was to appoint a director. And we interviewed some people as well as Mark, who has done an amazing job. And one of the candidates had gone into the internet to see, was there any other organization on the web that had the word happiness in the title? And the answer that came back on his screen was, your search for happiness has produced no results. So this is a very bad situation. And in a sense, it's why we founded Action for Happiness, because in our view, the mark of a good society is that people are enjoying their lives, feeling fulfilled, feeling happy. As few as possible are in despair or distress. And that, of course, is the great 18th century in the West, the great 18th century Enlightenment idea, which we think of as the founding principle of the modern Western world that took us from superstition into a more rational set of goals. But of course, the problem is that so many people lost sight of this. And that's why we founded Action for Happiness, to see if we could help to create a happier society. So what we ask all our members, and a lot of our members out here, who have taken a pledge to try to create a happier world as far as they can, and especially to produce as little misery as they can in the world. And I suppose there are two aspects to that. I mean, one is how we can achieve happiness in ourselves, and the other is how we can create happiness for others. They're not totally different, but I wondered if we could start with the first, the more personal, heartfelt aspect of how we can develop. So I would like to ask you, how can we have more inner peace? How can we have more peace in our hearts?
Basically, peace means, I think, no disturbances, no danger. That ultimately related with our own sort of mental attitude. The mental attitude, some kind of peaceful, calm. Even surrounding things, not like that. You can maintain peace of mind. If your own mental attitude much disturbed, a lot of stress, a lot of fear, distrust, then best facility there will not get peace of mind. So that shows the ultimate source of peace of mind is within ourselves. Of course, in some, I think the person who not yet gain inner strength, then external environment really makes big differences. But once through training, familiarize, you see, certain inner strength, you see, gain, then external or say the environment will not much differences or like that. So now the question is, how to bring inner peace? Through darkness, even danger coming there, some animal, you see, even danger just next step, but so long as not fear, not see that, then they sleep peacefully. So some kind of say, darkness, right? Some say, right? Not that way. Fully alert. Full sort of also the function about our intelligence. Very sort of also the sharp mind. At the same time, that sharp mind itself, you see, utilize, analyze the long-term interest and short-term interest. Then that brings that you see help sort of deeper awareness about our inner value. Then familiarize that inner sort of value. Then you gain, I think, sort of mental experience, the time factor is very important. So, because of the more familiar, right? Then, you see, it is strength, gain, more and more strength. So that could do it. So therefore, main thing is our intelligence. So long this brain there, no matter what color, outside hair, white or black or bold, brain is same. And also importantly, you see, to know color, black, white, yellow, no differences, brain. And old age, sometimes the work activities brain little because of that, weak. But that also, from young age, you see, utilize our sort of intelligence, maximum way, even physical getting older, your mind still remain fresh or sharp. So we noticed number of people who really train many years, even physically, very old, but mind still very fresh, alert, like that. So that's same. Then warm-heartedness. All 7 billion human beings, same. Because come from our mother, we received maximum affection from our mother, from our parent, particularly from our mother. So all 7 billion human beings, you see, I think these sort of potential from the beginning already there. Now only the question is whether you should pay more attention about this value. That is no question. In the front of English, very big nose, a very dignified sort of face. So I think difficult to say. I think existing Western education, I feel not adequate.
Quite right.
Now he support that. So I think more and more people, whether believer or non-believer, you see, now more and more people really showing some deeper sort of the understanding or mental function is so very important for in our life. So I think in the past, when we talk about compassion, love, many people feel, oh, that's a religious practice. So actually, whether you accept religion or not, these human affection, human compassion, these things are, I think, a basic factor for our survival, like that. So whether accept religion or not, up to individual. But these, so long we are human beings, we are part of the human society. We need these things. That's my belief. So now, as I mentioned earlier, it's the last now few decades. At the beginning, less people, a less number, right? People showing interest in these things, except those religious people. Now time passes, more and more people are showing, and now not only showing interest, but also like you, actually try to implement. Not only you yourself implement, but try to increase active in this field. So your sort of activities really something like, my responsibility is just to talk, blah, 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 blah. You see, you implementing, these things through action. So really wonderful, I appreciate it. And also, you see, more and more people are showing genuine sort of interest or awareness, importance of these things. And that gives me more encouragement and more hopeful.
Yeah.
Sometimes, you see, in the early period, when I talk compassion, you see, sometimes feel, I'm talking to rock. now changed, much changed. You see, when I talk, express these things, more and more people now really expressing some kind of agreement or acceptance, right? That's the only way. If existing sort of way of life, way of thinking, continuously go, I think this 21st century also becomes century of violence, century of misery. Nobody wants that. Then if we want better world, we have to work. We just carry our own way of thinking, way of life, and expect something different. It is unrealistic. I often telling, we usually, when we face some problem, difficulties, those believers always pray to God or Buddha. So as if these problems also created by God or Buddha. I think if we have the opportunity seeing God or Buddha, I think Buddha, God, I think most probably say, oh, don't ask me. These problems you created. So you have to find ways and means to solve these problems. I think God will say, I give you, the free will out of God's sort of love. You use wrong way. So most of the problem which we humanity now facing, even sort of global warming in some extent, I think our responsibility. So therefore, you see, I think and also is logically, this problem we created. So logically, we also have the opportunity or ability to reduce this problem, finally eliminate this problem, because these are our own creation. So differences, our generation created a lot of problems.
True.
So now this younger generation, usually I call generation of 21st century, now let them solve this problem. We now relax.
Excellent.
That's the differences. Otherwise, human problem must be solved by a human being. That's so. You see, your sort of today, ideas and your sort of activities really wonderful.
Well, thank you. I wondered if I could ask you, can I ask you a personal question?
Oh, yes.
You had many difficulties in life. We even hear them outside. How do you manage to stay so cheerful? For example,
yes,
I mean, many people would like to have some automatic method to lift their spirits if they feel down or something bad happens. Have you got some automatic method like that? Or do we have to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning?
I think, you see, difficulties or circumstances which usually, you see, getting frustration or anger, that is the best period to implement your practice. So, if you have some sort of experience, then it's more difficult. Like here, you see, I think you also, may heard, you see, here, you see, they shouting, false Dalai Lama, stop lying. So I really, you see, feel they also use freedom of expression. Wonderful, very good. Yeah. Then they are criticizing me. Then I have to think whether I really made some mistake or not. If you make mistake, then very good. They are now pointing your faults. If you did not, haven't made mistake, then feel sort of pity or sense of concern of their how ignorance. You see, their anger. You see, no proper reason. So then that develop more sense of concern, sense of compassion. So like that. So then you see there was one Tibetan sort of master, you see, who expressed, if you face some criticism, then you think, oh, fortunately they not hit me, not beating me, just criticism. Oh, wonderful, thank you. Then some beating you, then think, oh, not kill me, wonderful, just beat. And if they kill you, then finished. So like that, you see, things are from one Madhyamika philosophy, sort of, I think a wonderful sort of concept. Everything is interrelated. So compare one thing is good, compare another thing bad. So much involve mental projection. So therefore, you see, every event, one way or negative, one way, or you find this is some positive. So if we focusing only on negative side, then frustration, these things come. If you look more holistic, then this bad thing also, you see, Kasota, gives you some opportunity, or now, for example, opportunity of practice like that. So then you get sort of Kasota, more enthusiasm, more positive sort of mental attitude. So all these, you see, much depend on training of your mind, and it's a certain, how to say, the holistic view, like that.
Mm-hmm. Right. I wanted to ask you about our relationships, because we know from experience, from science also, that human relationships are extraordinarily important to our personal happiness. But so often, family relationships, other relationships get poisoned by destructive emotions. So how can we have happier relationships and avoid this pollution from destructive emotion?
Basically, we are social animals. So biologically, any social animal, emotionally, certain kind of sort of mental attitude which brings together. So that's love, affection. Even some animals, those social animal kind, right? Those kind of social animal, some limited sort of affection or compassion bring together, live together peacefully. So we are social animals. Then I think today's reality, I think, century-old concept. You see, we and they on the basis of religious faith or basis of country, my country, their country, and we and they. I think that today's reality not much relevant. Today we need, you see, sense of concern of entire 7 billion human beings, because we are part of 7 billion human beings. Our future very much depends the well-being of whole humanity. So that's now today's reality. Global warming, not to make differences this nation, that nation, or this continent, that continent. And global economy also beyond national boundary or religious boundary. So now I think the reality telling us you need sense of global responsibility on the basis of sense of oneness of humanity. So on that, you see, so therefore, I think violence, war is outdated. In century old, in the past, you see, it is something quite, I think, the reality. My nation, my continent, there. So, according to that reality, destroy your enemy. That in a way could be some kind of victory yourself. So on that reality, concept of war, mobilized, even some extent legalized violence, killing human being by human being. Morally speaking, unthinkable. But because of too much sort of stress, we and they. But now, no longer is that reality. So still, I think most of these problems we are facing is, I think, due to our old perception, we and they. So, continuously carrying that perception is increase gap, reality, and perception. So the reality, just one small blue planet. In the perception, still we carry too much stress, we and they. I always admire the spirit of the European Union. Previously, you see, these different nations, you see, are very much concerned about their own sovereignty or something. Now, gradually, during Adenauer and de Gaulle, the century-old thinking, French and German, that kind of a thing, now completely changed. So common goal, common interest is more important than just individual national interest. So European Union set up. Englishmen a little bit hesitant whether join or not.
We did eventually. And hopefully we'll continue.
So I think a clear sign of maturity of human being through the difficulties, through decades, decades through difficulties. I think it seems to see the Western world thinking these things are more advanced. In Asia, I think still thinking, old way of thinking, we, they, like that. And Africa as well. And Latin America, I think. So eventually, I think the spirit of European Union must spread. One time, I think I mentioned or not, a few occasions, some Nobel laureate meeting, and also another meeting, a different meeting. I expressed the NATO headquarters should shift to Moscow Then psychologically, the Russian people's mind, you see, psychologically come closer. So therefore, you see, you know now, the European Union is a must spread, expand. Then meantime, Africa, I think, should follow example of European Union. Africa, Pan-Africa, or Union of Africa comes. I think much problem reduce. And Asia also, like that. So these, I think, are common interest and should think seriously and on the basis of sense of universal responsibility, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel that.
Absolutely. Totally agree. Could we move on to what you call secular ethics? I know it's a phrase you like, and we discussed it at Madison once.
Yes.
And by it, I think you mean that the way we behave to each other, the principles, should be based on human need, and they don't require a religious justification, even though, of course, many religions come up with the same principles. So we're now, in the West anyway, in a fairly non-religious society here, and we felt, and this is one reason we founded Action for Happiness, that we really need a movement to stand for these ethical values and to help people in leading better lives than they can on their own through forming groups and helping people to support each other in living well. So you've heard some of what we are trying to do in Action for Happiness. I think it's your first exposure. I think we'd love to hear, how you think a movement like ours can represent secular ethics and whether we're doing it the right way. If you, whatever impression you had of the course and what Mark is talking about, because that's what we're really trying to launch off today.
Any moral principle or any sort of the practice of love, compassion, based on religious faith, then there is sort of boundary or limitation. So this problem, worldwide problem of humanity. So among humanity, I saw in some report, out of 7 billion, over 1 billion non-believer. And then frankly speaking, among the believer also, some, I think, because half-hearted sort of believer. When they are happy, good mood in the church, seems very religious-minded. But then when they really facing some problem as a sort of human being, then no longer that sort of, that Holy Spirit no longer there. So one time in Mexico, you see, I went one, I think, Catholic college. They invited me to talk. So they, beside the student, some bishops also is there. Then some sort of my usual talk about these matters. Then at the end, half joke, half sort of teasing, I mentioned, quite often, we religious people, our religious sort of practice or religious belief remain on our dress, not here. So long that dress there, and then looks holy person. When dress, take off, no longer holy person. So number of sort of bishops, they mocking that. Then next morning, one old bishop came to see me. He very much appreciated That's my comment. So among the believer also, you see, some are not very serious. So these, I think, a lack of firm conviction about value of love or honest, truthful, these things. So if people have some sort of agreement, these values, appreciation about these values, then various different religious traditions, inspired by different philosophy, all carry message of love, compassion. And with that, practice of forgiveness, tolerance, all major religious traditions carry. So wonderful sort of further strengthening these practice. At the same time, non-believer, whether they accept religion or not, up to individual. But so long they are human beings. So long they born from mother, they received immense sort of affection from their mother. So, whether believer or non-believer, we all have same seed, and we all need affection. Affection is the family. So after all, we social animal, family or friend, very important. In order to develop genuine friend or friendship entirely based on trust. Trust based on honest. Honest, very much related with sense of concern of their well-being there. Then honest to come. If you remain little distance from other, then sometimes necessary to artificial smile. So that will not bring trust. Without trust, how can bring friendship? So these mental system of the mind, warm-heartedness there, show your sense of concern. Then trust comes. Trust brings a friendship like that. So therefore, even animal, in order to become very close friendship, animal, first you should show your love. Then they trust you. Just feeding, not adequate. So then we human beings, our mind much more sophisticated. So honest, truthful. Not one day or 1 week, weeks, or months, years. Then trust comes. Oh, this person is really reliable, trustworthy. Then a friendship comes. Sometimes I think, unfortunately, people, day-to-day life, you see, carry very honest. Then sometimes people fail. That's a little bit because of the sophistication never so. What do you say?
Not that clever.
Not that clever. You see, clever, the sign of clever is some cunning. So I think too much honest, sometimes the people feel that's a little bit dull or too much innocent, right? Like that. And then, I'll say the harsh or tough, people consider something very able person. I think wrong perception. I think real strength comes from truth, honest, truthful. Then strength comes. Telling lie, beautiful lie, or cheating, or pretension. One day, sooner or later, people lost faith. So honest, truthful, transparent. I think the source of trust, basis of trust. I feel like that. So my own experience, now 80-year-old, I think except when I study seriously, study with reluctance, out of fear, some kind of threat from my tutor. Then sometimes even I tell a little bit lie to my teacher. Then 9 years with the Chinese communist. So I have to tell some lies here. 59, after I came to India, I telling some, when I met some Chinese, I also telling them, March 59, I left Lhasa. Then April, March, I reached India. Then actually, I liberated my sort of pretension or some little lie. Now, since then, I carry honest, truthful, quite frank, like that. So that brings me insight free. If I tell a little lie and hear something, something like that.
Well, I think you are amazing how you are a self-sustaining individual, but not everybody is as self-sustaining as you are. And I'd like to pursue the organization question, because you talk a great deal about the values and how people should behave. But if we think back to the days when most people were religious, the way that they'd learnt to behave was by going frequently to church.
Yes.
And meeting with other people who were expressing the same moral views and reinforcing each other. So making it easier to live well by meeting regularly with people who have the same views, and it raises your aspirations, it gives you some inner strength, uplifts you, inspires you. Do you think that there is a problem in the modern Western world that we don't have organizations to promote secular ethics in that way? We have great teachers, but we don't have organizations. And do you think that Action for Happiness could be an organization that helped to perform that kind of role? That's really what we're trying to do. But I'd love to know, how you think it can be done successfully.
So your work, you initiated using this kind of sort of the new pattern, right? A new movement. It's wonderful. So now, I think you start in England. So more, I think this movement, at least in Great Britain, you see, try to, in different sort of area, try to sort of expand.
Yep.
Then this eventually should be international organization.
Exactly. Yes.
Then at least in European countries, and as I mentioned earlier, Africa and some other country. I think from various sort of corner, this kind of movement now coming is really, I think, really hopeful sign. One single person, one single organization, is difficult to change whole humanity. So different part of the world, different field, different profession, I think aiming same goal, try to build happy world. The different profession, education, or even economist, you see, goal should be happier world. So their immediate sort of responsibility is try to bring, try to reduce this gap rich and poor. Then technology, engineer, they also, you see, aiming not to produce weapon, not to produce some sort of more violent nature, even toy, not violent nature. And then scientists, of course, very important. Now you see modern science, you see many people believe it's science. So, you see, I'm very happy, you see, to state more and more scientists now really showing genuine interest about deeper human nature. That means human emotion, human mind. The classical science mainly you see, deal with matter, including brain. Now they go deeper, deeper, deeper. the consciousness or emotion is a little bit sort of hidden sort of phenomena. But now scientists also you see going deeper. And they found basic human nature is more positive, more compassionate. And compassionate sort of heart is very, very important for our health. And no questions for happy family, happy community. Further go, happy nation, happy humanity. So the scientific sort of scientific research, result of scientific sort of research really very, very helpful like that. So, and then religious people. I just, when you mentioned you said some occasion to discuss these things, I just felt some church service, Sunday church service, at the beginning, some formal sort of service. Then let people, remain in the church, and some sort of private sort of discussions, including their problems. Let them, some talks, some discussions. Maybe useful. I don't know. Just I don't know. So it is very useful. You see, people, when have another sort of friend, who can, you can share your problems, your difficulties. That's very, very helpful to your emotions. Otherwise, these things,
very much kept to oneself.
Kept to oneself,
yes.
Then that more frustrations.
Well, Mark was telling me about the course that they have been testing out and trialing, which has many elements, of course. It has some video of some inspired teacher, and it has some scientific material of the kind that you talk about. Then it has some time for discussions of personal experience. Mark was telling me that actually the best thing of all is when people are talking to each other about their personal experience. This is the really powerful time on this course. But you mentioned the scientific aspect. I don't know if everybody here knows, you have been meeting with Western scientists now for 25 years, I think, something more, longer perhaps.
30 years, since 30 years.
Yeah, 30 years. And sometime you formed this organization called Mind and Life.
Yes.
I mean, if people don't know, there are these wonderful books which come out from the Mind and Life meetings. Actually, the meeting we had in Zurich 5 years ago, the book didn't yet come out. But hopefully that will happen. That was on altruism. It was a very interesting session that we had, wasn't it? But I think that what is happening here is something so interesting. The combination of Buddhist traditional wisdom and psychology. It was included.
Psychology.
Very specific psychological.
And the science of mind.
Yes, exactly.
That is, you should treat not part of Buddhism, but should treat as an academic subject. Since last, I think, few years, I appealed to some scholars out of 300 volumes Buddhist text, which are translated mainly from India. So the content, we can divide 3 parts. First part, science, particularly science of mind. That should consider as a subject of academic. Then second part, philosophy. Here, like certain philosophical views, very similar that of quantum physics. So one time, few years ago, in Delhi, one India's physicist, nuclear physicist, his name Rajaramana. Now he no longer. He told me he found in Nagarjuna's writing the concept of quantum physics he found there. So he, as an Indian, he feels very proud. The quantum physics in the world, something new. In India, 2,000 years ago, already found, already developed is that concept. So these are, let's say, philosophical part. Then some philosophical part directly linked with Buddhism. So then third part, religion. That's for Buddhist. But this first part, science, is universal. So therefore, we already sort of already to produce, compiled the book about science. So now English translation, Chinese translation, Japanese translation, Vietnamese translation, Korean translation, Mongolian translation, and so on, and Russian translation, or German translation, already now beginning like that. So therefore, you see, these eventually, hopefully, should be available in academic sort of the academic institution. So hopefully, eventually, study about human emotion, human mind, I think should include from kindergarten level up to university level. I think this is a young sort of student. If you ask, do you prefer their mother's smile face or a little bit of a negative face? You see, everybody say smile face. Then smile face is the expression of love. So everybody loves that. Negative face brings some uncomfortable. Even animal, some dogs, you look like that. Even dogs, sometimes you see shouting. You see, you smile, and because of pets are like that, they're really showing. So all animals, including we, you see, loves affection. So now the problem is just to repeat 1,000 times or importance of love, affection, 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 not sufficient. We have to make clear the whole system of emotion. Anger, hatred, you see, its own sort of the basis, and because of the related emotions or like that. And similarly, affection, love, also you see related with different sort of emotions. So once we know, I usually call map of emotion, map of mind, then much easier to deal. Anger, nobody like. That anger comes discourse, 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 discourse. If you don't like anger, you must pay more attention about these causes or conditions of anger. If you love, if you appreciate love, its own causes, you see, you love the affection, then you must pay more attention about these immediate cause and secondary long-term cause like that. So it is very, very essential. I usually call hygiene of physical, similarly, hygiene of emotion. In academic field, I think should include hygiene of emotion. Then, meantime, people, you see, every people, you see, loves affection. Then the whole system of the affection, whole map of emotion knows, then much easier to deal. This is from kindergarten level up to university level. I think, so here, the Buddhist science about mind, actually ancient Indian science of mind, very rich. But in India, I think not much preserved these things. I think except one few individuals. I think the other Buddhist countries, like China, it's the same tradition, follow of Nalanda tradition. but not much pay attention about rigorous study, only with Tibetan, over 1,000 years. You see, we really pay much attention for seriously study, at least 20, 30 years, seriously study. So I really feel now time come, some of our information, which is something relevant to today's world and useful to people, then we should present these things not as a Buddhist religion, but science which come from Buddhist literature. That's my view. I never propagate Buddhism. You know, science because of life, because of mind and life institution. I never discuss about next life or Buddhist concept of salvation. I never discuss. You see, so we just simply discuss, you see, this very life.
Yes.
And within this skull, what kind of sort of world there.
Well, I wanted to ask you, within the skull, I mean, one of the really big problems in Britain and other countries is serious mental health problems.
Yes.
This is a very big problem. It affects nearly every family in Britain, either mother's, child, relative, aunt. It is such a major issue, and it's not been properly discussed, and there's not proper resources given to helping people with these problems, especially if they don't have money. We've been, many of us, I think there must be a lot of people here who are involved in this, trying to extend the use of modern psychological therapy within our National Health Service, especially cognitive therapy, like I think you discussed with Aaron Beck. But how do you...
Cognitive.
But what is your picture of how we can tackle this really huge problem? What can we do to reduce the extent of distress due to mental health problems?
I don't know. I feel I have no experience. I think firstly, I myself wish become the troubled mind. Then I think through my own experiences, some sort of kasuta, I can share. In any way, I think these, I think expert, some sort of meeting, and with a person like Geshe-la, who knows the Buddhist psychology or Buddhist sort of the science of mind.
Right.
Then more discussions.
Yes.
Not at a Buddhist center, but it's some sort of academic area or hospital. I think in India, one time, one famous jail in Delhi, one authority of that jail, I know one lady police. See, she introduced some course of meditation in the prison. It's immense help. So like that, it's a certain sort of training of mind can be helpful. But these, I have no knowledge. It's just some discussions. Try to find how to utilize these things.
Could I come back to some of your personal experience? We're always told that feeling gratitude is very important. So what do you feel most grateful for just at the moment?
So,
to think about all living beings are very kind. That thinking is very helpful generate gratitude?
I'm a refugee, over now 56 years. I lost my own country. But I feel wherever you see people show smile, affection, that's your country, no problem. So I really appreciate it's a friendly attitude. And I think wherever I go, I think really sort of showing affection. So I very much sort of gratitude, appreciate.
Okay,
so occasionally, sometimes, I remember one day in Germany, quite late, you see, I went to some meeting in car. As my usual sort of practice, whenever I saw someone, I always smile. So you see, that night, my car go, one female, you see, young female is coming. I smile. Then I think my smile, instead of bring happiness, I think to bring some suspicion. So that young girl, young female, you see, looks something very negative. Then I also have the liberty to turn my face. I think it is understandable. You see, unknown person, and sort of strange sort of dress, and smiling her. I think her mind is felt, this man is something negative emotion. So occasionally such things happen. Otherwise, I think most cases, when I show smile, show human feeling, they're also human beings. Regardless whether they know before or not, automatically showing smile. Then you feel very happy. Really, very happy, like that.
I want to ask you one last question.
So I think I think you, the with you, I think sometimes it's better to see human smiling face rather than meditation or visualize Radha deity.
So, if you had to say one thing which you thought our members should take away from today, which would do more than anything else to create a happier world, what would you say to them?
My number one commitment as a human being, as one of the 7 billion human beings, we are social animal. Today's reality, as I mentioned earlier, each of us should carry sense of global responsibility. And in order to bring happier world, the ultimate source or ultimate factor is warm-heartedness. So everybody, please, you should think that. So naturally, all have the same common responsibility and to think more. That also, you see, when you face your individual family problem or this problem, think global problem. You see your individual family's problems and your individual sort of certain sort of pains and these things, then seems very small. If you only think, you, me, and a small problem, sometimes unbearable. So that also is quite useful. So think about global sort of what's today responsibility like that. The second my commitment is promotion of religious harmony. So those people who have some sort of connection with religious because of their belief, then you should try to promote religious harmony. Religion, all major religious tradition, I usually say 3 aspects of different, all religions, major religions. Religion, one aspect, religion. All carry same message of love. Second aspect is philosophy. There are differences. Some say there's creator, some say no creator. Big differences, even within Buddhist different school of thought, particularly in Nalanda tradition. There are 4 major school of thought like that. These different philosophy, when we see differences, no need to make unify. Leave it and look what is the purpose of this different philosophy. Then same, all different philosophy, method to promote practice of love. Like different food, same purpose to give nourish your body. So it is, I think, rather sort of silly, different dishes. You prepare this dish, and then force to other, you must eat this same dish. Silly. It's a different dish. According different, I think one restaurant, morning, breakfast, or lunch, or dinner, always same dish. Then I think customer reduce, less and less. Variety of dish, more people come. So similarly, variety of philosophical views, because of the fulfill desire or taste of different people. So different philosophy is very necessary. So long, all serving, strengthening religion, that is love. Then third aspect, culture or certain sort of tradition. That, I think, according to the surrounding environment at that time when the founder come, so the existing sort of cultural heritage or way of life also, you see, influenced. So frankly speaking, many religious sort of tradition, including Dalai Lama institution or Lama institution, these also, you see, some sort of relation with feudal system. So social system changing. So some of these, third part of the practice is from time to time, we have to change. So that's my view. So please think. And then another my sort of commitment or my responsibility is regarding Tibet. So as far as political responsibility is concerned, I totally retired. Not only myself retired, but also 4th century old tradition, Dalai Lama institution automatically become head of both institutions of Dalai Lama, automatically become head of both temporal and spirituality. Now that 2011 sees that. Not only myself retired, but also, you see, 4th century old tradition now cease or end, voluntarily, happily, proudly. So now my sort of concern, or my commitment is preservation of Tibetan environment, ecology. One Chinese ecologist wrote one article through his sort of investigation. He found affection from Tibetan plateau to impact for global warming. He found as much as North Pole and South Pole. So he described Tibetan plateau is third pole. So very important, even global warming. And then water, major rivers which cover almost whole Asia come from Tibetan plateau. So these rivers, I think over 1 billion human beings' life depend on these rivers. So taking care, special care about Tibetan environment is something very directly link with many people's life like that. Then Tibetan culture. Buddhism, I usually use, I make distinction, religion and culture of the religion. culture related with that religion. Like, for example, in European countries, Christianity, religion, but Christian culture, Judo-Christian culture differences. So like that, Tibetan case, Buddhism and Buddhist culture. So Buddhist culture related with community, Buddhism related with the individual. So Buddhist culture, now you can see Tibetan culture, Buddhist culture, very much non-violent culture, ultimately culture of compassion. That kind of culture is really worthwhile to preserve. And now directly into China, the over 400 million Buddhist population in China. So many of these Chinese Buddhists is showing interest about Tibetan Buddhism. So the responsibility regarding preservation of Tibetan Buddhism, Buddhist culture, not only Tibetan, but also these Chinese Buddhist brothers, sisters also have the responsibility. And last year, President Xi Jinping, he expressed openly in Paris and as well as in New Delhi, Buddhism is very important part of Chinese culture, like that. So therefore, preservation of Tibetan Buddhist culture and Buddhism, that's my commitment, a third commitment. So please, you see, my friend here, any possibility to visit Tibet, see by yourself, and then tell the reality. Unfortunately, the totalitarian system, closed society, no free information, everything censored and distorted information. So, you see, once you see by yourself and then analyze, then what you sort of understand, let's make clear. Eventually, I think free information from outside world, I think very helpful. Even Chinese leaders, sometimes the present leaders, new generation, they still do not know. They still, you see, believe the previous sort of the distorted information. They still believe that. So therefore, you see, the information according to the reality is made available. That's very, very important. That I want. And then number of Chinese students and also businessmen and women is from time to time is come and then please, you see, so the talk, share, you see, these things like that. I always expressing 1.3 billion Chinese people have every right to know the reality. Once they know reality, 1.3 billion Chinese people also have the ability to judge what is right, what is wrong. So censorship is immoral. Then Chinese judiciary system, you see, should first promote up to international the standard of judiciary system. That's very important. Then you see immense benefit to millions of Chinese patients or workers. See, many occasions I met some Chinese patient from mainland China, very poor, really very poor. Then I inquire condition in their own village. They say, very difficult. The local authority, their only concern is money. So their status or their position used for money. Not pay concern about about the well-being of the people, like that. So, judiciary system. Fortunately, the President Xi Jinping also now, from time to time, repeating importance of legal system like that. So, thank you very much. So, well, ultimately, thank you.
Well, thank you. I wanted to say, obviously, we should be giving the course on exploring what matters to the Chinese leaders. shouldn't we?
Because really, I think I think now we must start in education field. Some also the education about warm-heartedness. If start now, at the beginning or at the early part of 21st century, then I think later part of 21st century, I think through that kind of education, then generation who come from that kind of education, I think will be more compassionate.